You watched part 1. You thought you understood Ohio. You don't. Because what we covered in part 1, the erased geometry, the time-frozen canal town, the unpronounceable crossroads, the lighthouse peninsula, those were the towns that are strange but livable, quirky but functional, weird in ways that make for a good weekend road trip. What comes next is different. Part 2 is where Ohio stops being interesting and starts being genuinely difficult to explain. We're entering the section of this countdown where towns either got swallowed by the federal government, became accidental cryptid tourist economies, or exist inside a situation so geographically bizarre that cartographers apparently just gave up and hoped nobody would notice. The locations you're about to see aren't just weird. They're the kind of weird that makes you question what exactly was happening in Ohio while the rest of America wasn't paying attention. Number 5 through number 1, the real tier. The tier where Ohio stops apologizing for itself. Number 5, Sugar Creek. Here's a travel tip that nobody asked for, but everyone needs. If you've always wanted to visit Switzerland, but your bank account keeps suggesting you reconsider, there is a town in rural Ohio that has been quietly solving this problem for decades. Welcome to Sugar Creek, population roughly 2,200 people, a village that made a collective decision at some point in its civic history that what rural Amish country Ohio was genuinely missing was more alpine identity. And so they built it. Sugar Creek sits in Tuscarawas County, about 90 miles south of Cleveland, surrounded by rolling green farmland and one of the largest Amish communities in the United States. Median home values sit around $210,000, slightly below the national average. Median household income runs about $62,000, consistent with the broader rural Ohio picture. Crime rates here are extremely low, roughly 50% below the national average. Tourism drives a surprising portion of local revenue through festivals, specialty shops, and the draw of Amish country. So, statistically, Sugar Creek is a safe, quiet, very affordable small town where life moves at a pace that most cities would find medically alarming. But right in the middle of downtown Sugar Creek stands something that has absolutely no geographical reason to exist in this location. One of the largest cuckoo clocks in the world, 23 feet tall. Every 30 minutes, the mechanism activates. Music plays, mechanical wooden dancers begin spinning, carved alpine figures emerge and move in a tiny parade of Swiss precision engineering in the middle of Ohio farmland, surrounded by Amish horse-drawn buggies. It's charming, it's surreal, it's slightly disorienting if you weren't expecting it, which, if you're driving through Tuscarawas County, you were almost certainly not expecting it. The Swiss identity of Sugar Creek isn't random, though. It traces directly back to Swiss and German immigrants who settled this part of Ohio in the 1800s. Over generations, the community maintained that cultural connection, and at some point, someone with a very specific vision and apparently unlimited confidence decided that the correct way to honor that heritage was not a small museum or an annual dinner, but a 23-foot mechanical clock that announces itself to the entire downtown every half hour. Today, events like the Ohio Swiss Festival draw thousands of visitors annually. The combination of authentic Amish culture, Swiss architectural aesthetics, and the enormous clock has made Sugar Creek a legitimate tourism destination that punches well above its population size. Think about the level of commitment this represents. Someone stood in a planning meeting, looked at a map of rural Ohio, and said, "You know what this place needs? Less cornfield energy, more Switzerland." And not just the vibe of Switzerland, an actual enormous cuckoo clock. The whole town just looked around, nodded, and said, "Build it." I have enormous respect for that confidence. That is a person who has never second-guessed a single decision in their life. Picture a quiet afternoon in Sugar Creek. The air carries the smell of fresh bread drifting from a bakery somewhere nearby. A horse and buggy move slowly down the main road, the clip of hooves steady and unhurried. The hills around town are green and rolling. It's calm. It's almost impossibly peaceful. Then, the cuckoo clock erupts. Music, movement, spinning dancers, mechanical figures doing their thing right in the center of the town square. And somehow, in that moment, this Amish countryside village genuinely feels like somewhere in the Swiss Alps, which is an absolutely wild thing for rural Ohio to pull off. Sugar Creek proves that sometimes the strangest towns aren't strange because of disasters, legends, or government interference. Sometimes they're strange because someone looked at a perfectly good American farming community and decided it needed to be more European, and then followed through completely. Number 4. Loveland. Let's talk about a town where everything is perfectly normal. The real estate market is healthy, the bike trails are excellent, the breweries are thriving, the schools are well rated, and a 7-foot amphibian humanoid has been casually spotted near the river on multiple confirmed occasions. Welcome to Loveland, where the statistics say one thing and the riverbank says something entirely different. Loveland sits in Claremont and Hamilton counties, just outside Cincinnati along the Little Miami River. Population approximately 13,000 residents. Median home price roughly $380,000, which runs higher than the Ohio state average. The crime rate sits 60% below the national average, making it one of the genuinely safer suburbs in the greater Cincinnati area. Median household income lands around $98,000. By every measurable standard, Loveland is calm, prosperous, and bordering on aggressively normal. And then, the Frogman shows up. The legend begins in 1955 when a local businessman driving along Riverside Drive reported something that took a moment to process. 3 creatures, humanoid in shape, standing upright under a bridge, and, according to this witness, who was by all accounts a functioning adult making rational decisions up until this moment, one of the creatures raised what he described as a wand-like object that produced visible sparks. A spark-shooting frog person under a bridge in suburban Ohio. He stopped. He stared. He presumably reconsidered some life choices. And then 1972 happened. A Loveland police officer, a trained professional whose job involves rational assessment of situations, reported spotting a large creature crouched near the road by the river. When he approached, the thing reportedly rose onto 2 legs, made sustained eye contact, and then calmly climbed over a guardrail and descended toward the water. A second officer separately confirmed seeing something similar the same night. 2 separate police officers, same creature, same river, same year. Skeptics have suggested the most likely explanation is a large escaped iguana, which is technically a reasonable hypothesis, except that raises an immediate follow-up question. What specific iguana stands upright, makes deliberate eye contact with a uniformed officer, and then smoothly vaults a guardrail toward the river like it has a standing appointment there? That is not iguana behavior. That is something else behavior. Number 3. Helltown. In the 1970s, the federal government of the United States bought an entire Ohio town. Every house, every farm, every church, every street, all of it purchased, cleared, and absorbed into what would eventually become a national park. And then the rumors started. Welcome to Helltown, which is not the official name. The official name is Boston Township, tucked inside what is now Cuyahoga Valley National Park, approximately halfway between Cleveland and Akron. But what happened here after the government buyout was so atmospheric, so unsettling to drive through, that the nickname Helltown spread through regional legend and simply never left. Boston Township started the same way most small Midwestern communities started. Founded in the early 1800s, built around the Ohio and Erie Canal, small farms, quiet roads, tight family communities that knew each other across generations. For nearly 150 years, life here was unremarkable in the best possible way. Then came 1974. The federal government launched an initiative to establish what would become Cuyahoga Valley National Park, and Boston Township sat directly in the middle of the target area. Through the National Park Expansion Initiative, properties began being purchased one by one. Families were relocated, homes were vacated, businesses closed, streets that had been lived on for generations went quiet, and empty places attract stories. The legends spread quickly and with remarkable creativity. Toxic chemical spills had created mutated animals in the river. A haunted school bus was hidden somewhere deep in the woods. Abandoned churches were being used for satanic ceremonies. Government quarantine zones had been established for reasons that were never officially disclosed. None of this was true. Not a single documented piece of it, but the atmosphere that generated these stories, completely real. Drive through abandoned roads where entire neighborhoods used to exist. See old foundations disappearing under overgrowth. Past structures slowly being consumed by trees and vines. Your brain will start writing horror stories completely on its own. You don't need to add anything. Today, Boston Township is part of Cuyahoga Valley National Park, which attracts over 2.9 million visitors per year, making it one of the most visited national parks in the entire country. Some years, it draws more visitors than Yellowstone. Crime in the area is essentially non-existent because most of the land is protected wilderness. The remaining residential properties average around $300,000 to $350,000, typical for suburban Northeast Ohio. Jobs are mostly tied to Cleveland and Akron, each about 30 to 40 minutes away. The scariest thing about living near Helltown today is almost certainly your morning commute, not the alleged radioactive wildlife. Here's the genuinely wild irony at the center of this story. The government project that erased a community, displaced families, and generated decades of dark legends also accidentally created one of the most beautiful nature destinations in the Midwest. Hiking trails, waterfalls, historic canal paths, wildlife corridors. Millions of people drive through what used to be someone's neighborhood every year, usually without knowing anything happened there at all. The ghost town became a nature park, the abandoned streets became scenic trails, and the rumors became tourism content. One of the wilder legends claimed that the government had evacuated Boston Township specifically because of toxic chemical monsters emerging from the river. Let's think about this for 2 seconds. If that were true, the EPA would not be having a quiet internal meeting about it. It would be the loudest meeting in American regulatory history, and the National Park brochure would read very differently. Welcome to Cuyahoga Valley. Please enjoy the waterfalls, the scenic railroad, and the occasional chemically enhanced raccoon. We appreciate your visit. Sometimes, the truth behind a legend is almost as interesting as the legend itself. Boston Township is proof of that. Number 2. Millfield. Most of Ohio's strange towns got their reputations from cryptids, geometry, or French real estate fraud. Millfield, Ohio, got its reputation from one of the deadliest coal mining disasters in state history, and then quietly kept existing in the shadow of that event for nearly a century, while almost nobody outside the region ever learned its name. Millfield sits in Athens County in the rolling hills of southeast Ohio, deep in the Appalachian part of the state. Population today sits around 900 residents. Median home values hover around $120,000. Median household income in Athens County runs roughly $40,000, reflecting the persistent economic challenges across this part of Appalachian Ohio. The region is surrounded by the Wayne National Forest, giving the landscape a dense, heavily wooded character that makes it feel genuinely remote even though it's only about 20 miles from Athens. The town itself is quiet, unhurried, the kind of place where the pace of life feels disconnected from the urgency of the outside world. But the ground underneath Millfield holds a story that the community has never fully moved past. On November 5, 1930, the Sunday Creek Coal Company's No. 90 mine experienced a catastrophic explosion. 82 miners were killed. It was one of the worst coal mining disasters in Ohio history, and the ripple effects moved through the community for generations. Families lost fathers, brothers, uncles, and sons in a single underground event on a Tuesday morning in November.
The mine eventually closed. The coal industry in southeast Ohio declined steadily through the mid-20th century, and Millfield was left to exist without the economic engine that had originally given it a reason to exist at all. No replacement industry materialized at the same scale. The population shrank, the economic base thinned. What remained was a community with long memory, deep roots, and the particular quiet resilience that defines Appalachian Ohio towns that absorbed enormous loss and simply kept going. Athens County today has one of the lowest median household incomes in Ohio. The regional economy depends heavily on Ohio University in nearby Athens, healthcare, and the limited service industry that comes with a rural county seat. Millfield itself doesn't have much commercial infrastructure. It's the kind of place you drive through on a county road and either recognize it for what it is or don't notice it at all. But there's something about a town that carried that weight and didn't disappear that deserves to be named. Most places that experienced economic collapse at that scale either got absorbed into something larger or became statistics in a decline narrative. Millfield just kept being Millfield, smaller, quieter, permanently shaped by what happened underground in 1930, but still there. Sometimes the weirdest thing about a small town isn't a legend or a geographic quirk. Sometimes it's simply that a place absorbed something enormous, and nobody who doesn't already know would ever guess it just by driving through. Number 1. Peninsula. Imagine living in a town. Normal house, normal neighbors, maybe a dog, maybe a garden. And millions of people drive through your front yard every year. Not near it, not past it on the highway, literally through the middle of your actual town, because your town happens to be inside a national park. Not adjacent to, not on the edge of, inside. Which means that every single one of the roughly 2.9 million people who visit Cuyahoga Valley National Park each year drives directly through someone's hometown on the way to their trailhead. Peninsula sits between Cleveland and Akron, tucked into the scenic valley carved by the Cuyahoga River. Median home prices hover around $340,000, notably higher than most comparable small Ohio towns. For obvious reasons, you are quite literally buying a house inside a national park. Median household income runs around $78,000, supported by tourism, small businesses, and the commuter access to both Cleveland and Akron, each about 30 to 40 minutes away. Crime rates sit roughly 60% below the national average, which makes sense when your primary residential neighbors are hiking enthusiasts and park rangers. The local employment picture is a mix of tourism, hospitality, and people who commute to major metro jobs while living what might objectively be one of the stranger residential situations in American geography. Peninsula existed long before the national park came along. The town started in the early 1800s as a canal stop along the Ohio and Erie Canal, the same waterway that powered Roscoe Village and shaped Boston Township. Cargo boats moving through the Cuyahoga Valley stopped here. The town had commerce, a reason to exist, an economic identity. Then, in the 1970s, the federal government moved to establish Cuyahoga Valley National Park, and unlike Boston Township, which was absorbed and cleared, Peninsula was simply left in place. The park boundary was drawn around it, protected wilderness on every side. The town stayed, which created a situation that has no real parallel in American small-town geography. Your backyard connects directly to forest trails. Waterfalls are within walking distance. The Cuyahoga Valley Scenic Railroad runs through town. Deer cross your street with the calm confidence of creatures who understand the legal protections afforded by national park designation. Your commute to a normal office job in Cleveland involves driving through a landscape that millions of people travel hours to experience for a weekend. A local resident described it in a way that has never been improved upon. It's like living in a national park gift shop, except you get to stay after closing. That is exactly what it is. There's a specific kind of surreal that comes with Peninsula's situation. You're one of 560 people living in a village that 2.9 million strangers visit every year. You're permanent, they're temporary. You know every trail, every overlook, every seasonal change in the forest around you. They're taking photos of things you walk past on a Tuesday to check the mail. And yet somehow it works. The town functions. People raise families there. They run small businesses that serve the park visitor traffic. They live a life that most people would describe as beautiful, but that probably has its own specific frustrations, like trying to get anywhere on a busy summer Saturday when the trail parking lots are completely overrun and every road through the valley is backed up with out-of-state license plates. Tourists in national parks always follow the same script. They drive 3 hours for nature, they arrive, they immediately check their phone signal, find it lacking, and complain about it audibly. You're standing in a valley full of waterfalls, historic canal paths, and old-growth forest. The phone can wait 5 minutes. Your Instagram will be there when you get back to the highway. Peninsula proves something that is easy to miss. The strangest places are not always the ones with the loudest legends or the most dramatic histories. Sometimes, the strangest place is simply a town that refused to move, watched a national park grow around it, and has been quietly living inside one of the most visited landscapes in America while the rest of the country drives past without fully realizing that someone actually lives there. 560 people, 2.9 million visitors, one town that technically exists inside protected wilderness. That's number one, and it earned it.